to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guest. I gotta tell you, people, I was driving in my car a little while ago, and I was listening to classic rock in Philadelphia. The station is WMGK, and Andre Gardner was so excited, the DJ who's been there for years, because he announced the tour with 10cc, and they're coming to Philly, and he was so excited. And we have the gentleman from He's 10cc, and he also has a great solo album. I actually listened to the song We're Alive, and I really enjoyed it. And my guest is Graham Gouldman. How you doing, Graham?
I'm fine, Steve. Very good.
So you're coming to Philly, you're coming to the U.S. It's been a long time.
It has.
Did you change your mind, or how did we get to this point? Because people are abuzz over here because they haven't seen you forever.
Well, they haven't seen us forever, you're right. It's been decades, actually. We got a very, an offer from our US promoter to come over and play. And what could we do? We couldn't say no. It's a wonderful looking tour. We're hitting some brilliant cities, and it's going to be a pleasure to be touring in America again after so long.
Now, have you visited America since you've toured? I believe you did a one-off a few years ago, but have you actually visited America on your own?
Many, many, many times. Yeah, for many different reasons. I spent a lot of the 80s actually in LA because I was working with the late Andrew Gold. Andrew and I had a band called Wax, which had quite a lot of success in Europe, but didn't do anything in America. And then I've got family. My daughter lives in Phoenix, so I come over to see her. We've been over for various reasons over the years. The last time I was in New York actually was for my grandson's wedding. Prior to that, I think 2018, I toured America with Ringo Starr and the All-Star Band.
What was that like?
It was fantastic. It was great, as you would imagine.
Well, because I had Ian Hunter on a few weeks ago, and he had toured with him, and I actually saw that show in L.A. at the Universal Amphitheater when I lived there over 20-odd years ago. But how does it come about? Like, how does you sit there? Do you just get a call, and it's Ringo, and he says, hey, come tour with us?
Something like that. David Hart, who's Ringo's tour producer, contacted my agent and arranged a meeting, and he asked me a stupid question. He said, would you like to tour with Ringo Starr and the All-Star Band? So I said, well, definitely, right away I'm in for that, definitely. And so there was quite a bit of a lead-up time. I sort of spent a lot of time rehearsing because I wanted to go into the whole thing being absolutely prepared, and I just had a ball. It was great, not only working with Ringo, but with Steve Lukather, Greg Rowley, Colin Hay, Greg Bissonnet. It was just brilliant.
Now, what 3 songs did you play?
I played, they wanted 10cc songs, so I did Dreadlock Holiday, I'm Not in Love, and The Things We Do for Love.
Now, as a musician, because when you play with him, you have to learn all the other songs. You've been a musician for a long time. You've been around. Is it easy? Do you pick it up by ear? I always wonder how someone like you, who's written so many songs and is, you're in the Songwriting Hall of Fame, so you know what you're doing. But does it just come natural? Like they go, okay, I got to pick up 3-minute work songs. You just pick up the guitar.
Right. Well, of course, the great thing is that they're great songs, so they're a pleasure to work on. And I spent a lot of time. I really spent about 6 months on and off rehearsing for this tour. So whenever I got a chance, I would go through I was playing bass with the band. So going through those and really studying all the records and really, going very, very deep into the whole productions. And it was an absolute joy. So I love rehearsing for it. I love playing with Ringo. It was fabulous.
Now, when you come to the States, tell me about the band you're bringing with you, because you've been playing it for a while, but it's the first time it's probably the first time all of you are together playing in the States.
Well, okay, so let me tell you about the band. First of all, I'm the only original member from the original 4 of the band. However, we do have Paul Burgess is on drums with me. He joined the band in 1973 when the original 4 of us went on the road. Then in 1976, Kevin Godley and Lol Creme left the band, and Eric Stewart and I decided to carry on and formed what I call the Mark II 10cc. And that's when Rick Fenn, who plays with me now, that's when he joined the band, and he's been with me on so many different projects throughout the years. And the other boys are, we've got a relatively new boy, Keith Heyman. He's only been with us for about 20 years. He plays keyboards and sings as a multi-instrumentalist. And Andy Park is our new singer, guitarist, keyboard player, percussionist. So everybody does everything. There's lots of sort of changes because the songs demand it, and we always honor the song.
Now, it's the ultimate greatest hits tour. So what is your prep for getting ready for this tour? Like, do you guys have a big rehearsal time, or because you know these songs because you've played them? I mean, it's something like it comes back to you. But how do you prepare to come for the tour to the U.S.?
Well, because we're doing a lot of not touring. We did a big UK tour earlier in the year, but up to the time we come to America, we are doing quite a few 10cc gigs. So we'll be doing not quite as long a set as we'll be doing when we come there. But the fact is that we don't need to rehearse because we're up and running. You know, we're kind of match fit, if you like, already. So, you know, I mean, the main thing is this, you know, really every gig is the same in a way. I mean, audiences vary, but what we do and what we want to achieve on each gig is pretty much the same, in that we want everybody to have a good time, that we want them to hear the songs as best that they will ever hear them from the live band, and just people to enjoy themselves.
Now, do you still really feed off the energy of a great crowd? Because I do comedy, and if it's a lousy crowd, I sometimes don't feel the energy, and you feel a little off. It gets in my head. How about you? Because you've been doing it for so long. Do you still feel the energy, and do you ever get nervous?
Definitely. Well, first of all, I always get nervous, and I hope I will always get nervous. I think if I don't get nervous, I'm going to not bother to do it anymore, because the as you will know, then if you're a performer, the sort of the nerves creates the adrenaline that actually puts you on, like you're on. You know, your other self kind of takes over and wants to give the best to an audience. You don't want to feel like a schmuck, do you? You know, you want to be you don't want to make any mistakes. So the nerves are very, very important. As far as when you come out and you can feel a kind of like the love from an audience, it's the most wonderful thing. Sometimes if an audience is a bit quiet, then you have to kind of like work for it a little bit. But eventually, you know, there's this sort of give and take between the audience and the band. And then you kind of coalesce, you know, you can become like one lovely sort of mass of people. It's a fantastic thing. And I guess the thing about it is that it becomes addictive, as you probably know. It's a wonderful feeling. If you're making people happy, you see people smiling, and you're hopefully making them laugh. It's a great thing, isn't it?
Yeah, the thing is, what goes through my mind, and I get the nervous energy too, and I tell people, you know, that's part of the game. I always worry I'm going to forget stuff. And I don't know why, because and if I do, I have other stuff. Do you ever do that with your lyrics? Because, I mean, for me, if I forget something, I can zip into something else. But if you're in the middle of a song and you forget a lyric.
Well, you know, there's such a thing as muscle memory as far as playing is concerned. But it very rarely happens, but it can happen. And the trick is not to think too much. If you start thinking about just checking what's the next line and this, that's a recipe for disaster. But you know, it happens very, very rarely. And the other thing is not to, if someone makes a mistake, as much as you want to, do not react to it, because then no one will think that anything's wrong. If you don't think it's wrong, then me as an audience member won't think it's wrong. Unless it's like so glaring.
Right.
Then you try and make something funny out of it. Try and use it.
Well, I'd also think that you have some really devout fans. If you did forget a lyric, I think they would help you because they know all the lyrics.
I think they would. Yeah, I think they would. Yes, and that's another thing that's lovely about playing is hearing an audience, join in on a lyric, or when the chorus comes, they know the chorus, so they're going to sing along.
I want to ask you this because you go through it and performers go through it, and it bothers me when I go to a concert. I was at a concert last year, and this woman was standing up the whole time with her iPad filming the concert, and I see people.
Yeah.
I always think, you know what? Just watch the concert. Like, you're not going to rewatch this. Do you notice that when you're on stage, if there's people, and does it bother you?
It does bother me a little bit. I want them to just enjoy that night. It's a special night. It will never be repeated. Yes, you can repeat it on your iPhone or iPad or whatever, but the sound's going to be horrible. It's not going to be, if you just stood and watched, you'd see it perfectly, But I suppose that's just the age we live in. There are certain songs, even if everybody hasn't got their iPhone out, that they do, and I understand it, people do want a souvenir. So when you get to a song like I'm Not in Love, all the iPhones come out.
No.
But that's the way it is today. And I think it's, I don't like the idea actually of banning it, because, asking people not to use their iPhones. It's like, seems a bit mean if they want a souvenir or something to show their friends that they were at the concert. I'm not up for that.
As someone who's been going to concerts for years, I do miss people putting the lighter up, and instead they put their phone up. Yeah. I always like the lighter, because to me,
the lighter that was good, just, yeah.
I mean, from when you were on stage, that must have been amazing to see so many people with lighters. It must give you a sense of like serenity almost. Oh
yeah, it does. It's fantastic. It's a lovely feeling. It's a kind of appreciation, isn't it, of the band and what we're doing. No, I'm okay with it.
So when did you start playing music? You've had a long career, and I always wonder what made you get into music.
I started becoming really seriously aware of music when I was about 7 years old, and I wanted to be a drummer. And I had lessons, but drums, as much as I love drums and drumming, and I still do, I didn't have the capability. But when I was 11, I was bought a guitar. A cousin of mine came back from Spain with this beat-up, cheap guitar, but I absolutely fell in love with it when I was 11 years old. And I actually wrote something on it the first day I got it, which was the most simple thing, like using Barry chords. And the main thing was, for me, well, there were a few elements to how lucky I was. The era that I was born into, the music I was listening to as a very young, even pre-teens, kind of went into my blood. What I listened to then, a lot of it from America, like people like Buddy Holly, the Everly Brothers, Little Richard, Chuck Berry, Buddy Holly. These artists still inform what I do today as a songwriter. They're in my blood, as I say. And then, of course, there was the skiffle era in the UK, then Cliff Richard and the Shadows, and then the most important thing that happened was the Beatles.
Well, I want to ask you, you said about Buddy Holly and all them. Was it easily accessible because you were in England? Was it on the radio? Did you hear it?
Yeah, but not constantly, nothing like now. Now you can, 24 hours, you can listen to whatever you want, whenever you want. Then it was the Light program. There's a program called Saturday Club, and it started, they would play records, current records, American records, UK records, and they'd have artists coming in. Like this week, it's welcome the Beatles are here. Hello, Paul, how are you doing? And the interview. And there was also something called a commercial station called Radio Luxembourg that you could only. It was very hard to hear it, but people used to listen to it. So, because the music wasn't that accessible, anything that was on was really special. And we would all, like me and my mates, would all listen to these programs. Music has always been my life, really.
What made the Beatles so special to you? I talked to so many musicians who said it was the Beatles. For you though, as a young guy, you see them. What was it that you just said? Was it their look? Was it their sound? Because you were already into some of that Buddy Holly stuff, so it's a different sound. But
they also, people of a certain age have exactly the same influences. I worked with Brian May on a record not long ago, and we were talking about, he's slightly younger than me, but he has exactly the same people that you listen to, that I listen to. I think all my contemporaries did as well. I think with the Beatles, it was suddenly they looked different. First of all, it was the songs, the most important thing. But they looked different. They didn't smile. They didn't sing with American accents. They had different guitars. And it changed our lives. I wouldn't be talking to you today if it wasn't for the Beatles. Simple as that.
So
I can't express how important they were.
So they're important. So they change your life. So when do you decide to start really pursuing this and writing? Because I know you've written a lot of songs, but when did you start saying, this is what I'm going to do? And how did you learn how to write? Because writing music fascinates me. Because you hear a song and I'll hear it and I'll go, what? Where'd that come from? I'm fascinated by the art behind writing. Like for me, if I write a joke, it pops in my head. But when did you start really taking your songwriting serious?
Well, first of all, you said learn to write songs. You can't learn to write songs. It's a gift. You've either got it or you ain't. But myself and loads of other people were inspired and encouraged by what the Beatles were doing, because here was a band that was writing their own songs. Whereas the norm in the UK was you go down to the publishing houses on Denmark Street, the kind of Tin-Pan Alley, and go around the publishers asking for songs, which I did with one band, and nobody would give us anything. And I thought, well, I'm going to start writing songs then. And really it was the Beatles that inspired me. I can't tell you why it happens, or it's a bit of a mystery, really. But I've got a new solo album that's coming out on July the 5th called I Have Notes. And the cover of that kind of speaks to where inspiration comes from. The act of actually sitting down with a guitar is kind of like putting a uniform on for me, in a way that I change into a slightly different person, and I start basically just messing around until I find a chord sequence I like that suggests a mood, that suggests a lyric, and then stuff comes out. I was working on something yesterday and a whole block of things came out, which was like the words and the melody as well. So I don't know where it comes from.
Now, when you wrote, I know you wrote for the Yardbirds, for Your Love, and you wrote it for other people. What is it like for an artist? Because I've written jokes for people before, and when I see someone deliver it, I'm like, I could have done it better. But what is it like for you when you have to listen to the music? Because, you sit there. What is that like when you hear another musician play your song, when inside your head you're probably, because it's any song or any joke is our baby. So you're probably like, I can do it better. What is that like for you?
All right. First of all, to have songs recorded by bands like the Hollies or Herman's Hermits and the Yardbirds. The Yardbirds, all of those bands which I love. So first of all, to have them record one of your songs is amazing. Now, when the Hollies recorded Bus Stop, which is one of my favourite songs I've written of all time, but they changed a chord in it, and I'm very sort of pedantic about chords, you know, like it's got to be exactly right. And when I heard it, it kind of jarred with me a little bit. But as it rose up the charts, I grew to love it. So it was absolutely fine. And actually their version of Bus Stop is, well, it's a definitive version. That's great.
So tell me about 10cc. How did you guys get together? Because you're going to be touring with their songs, but how did the band come together?
Okay, well, myself, Kevin, Godley and Lol Creme were all in different bands that used to rehearse at a club in North Manchester called the Jewish Lads Brigade. And we, the deal was that they let us use, they had lots of rooms there that we could rehearse in. And, you know, we'd play at some of their social events, you know, like for nothing. I think that was the deal. And so I met Kevin and Lol. I'd already met Eric Stewart because he used to come into my manager's office at the time. So we just sort of coalesced through. One of the main things that brought us together was the studio that Eric and a guy called Peter Satterthal started, that I became a partner in. And we started, really, we're like a house band at the studio. We'd play on other people's records, whatever it was. We wrote stuff when other people weren't in the studio. And really that's how we started, because we'd written one song that Eric and I had written that Apple were interested in releasing. And we thought, well, we need a B-side. And so we said, well, it seems fair. We've written the A-side, so Kevin Lol should write the B-side. And that turned out to be our first single, Donna, in 1972. No. And really that's the story of it in a nutshell.
Now, what fascinates me is I read how when you guys wrote, you all really wrote together. Everyone had input, and it was just, how did you do that? Because I would think you're all talented people. Sometimes it seems like there was no ego. Is that true? When you guys were starting out, was there no ego?
For a while. Yeah, basically there were two main writing teams, although we did mix it up if you look at the songwriting credits. So what would happen is whoever wrote the song would present it to the other people. And one rule was that if you wrote it and you like it, and I'm not crazy about it, but we're going to do it, but I have the right to kind of suggest maybe you should rearrange this, or could we try this, a different chord change or something like that. So we all took ownership of the songs as if they were our own, even though it would have been written by one of the pair of us in general. And that's how we carried on. And we also had the other thing of whoever was best for the job should get the job. So we had 3 number 1 singles in the UK with 3 different singers. You wouldn't normally get that, because there'd be, you know, like Tech Queen are a great example. Brian May always plays lead guitars and is very recognisable by his style, and Freddie would always sing lead because he's got I think there are exceptions actually to that, but anyway, generally he would sing lead. But with us, it was very different because we already had 3 guitarists in the band anyway. So, you know, we'd share certain duties. So you guys are, you know, you're getting hits. Then I'm Not in Love comes out. How does that change your career? Because that blew up in the U.S. That's one of those songs, and then of course it came out later in Guardians of the Galaxy, so you got a whole new crowd. Yeah. But what is that like when you're doing well? But is it you're suddenly I'm sure you're probably thrust into the spotlight then because it's an international hit. Well, it was incredibly important for us because it was a hit pretty much all over the world, and it's the gift that keeps on giving as well. So this did raise our status I think from then on, a lot of people saw us as a kind of maybe a soft rock band or something. But if you listen to any of the early 10cc's albums in particular, nothing could be further from the truth. We used to do, our principle was, whatever the song dictates, we do the best for it. So, and also they were all so different, the songs. I mean, from like the 3 number ones we had were I'm Not in Love, Rubber Bullets, and Dreadlock Holiday. I mean, they could be with 3 different singers. They could be 3 different bands almost. So on the upside, we gained sort of like international success, but I think it did sort of mark us as this sort of soft rock or yacht rock, I think they call it. But anyway, I'm not complaining or anything, but I think that's what happened. So yes, we could tour in markets that we hadn't toured before.
How did you like touring? I mean, it seems like everyone you love performing. Like I always say, it's show business. There's businesses and there's show. Once you get on stage, you're not getting paid for that. But it's all the other crap you go through to get on stage that goes through. What was it like for you? Because now did you enjoy touring the actual, because it's a lot of work. People don't get it. It's like promotion.
Listen, if I didn't love it, I wouldn't do it. I don't have to do it, but it's worth it. The traveling is tiring. There are several aspects of it that are tiring, but really, I love working with the boys that I'm with at the moment. They're fantastic. They're lovely people, and that's really important to me. They're fine musicians. We get on really well. It's a lot of fun. And yes, the traveling it can be tiring, but other times it's not, and you get to see great places and meet a lot of different people, which is lovely. So all in all, there's a lot more pros than cons.
Now back to 10cc. When Godley and Creme left, did you somewhat feel like you lost your identity because it was for you? I mean, what's it like when, even though there was 2 separate pretty much songwriting teams, what was it like for you as a performer, because your identity is the 4 of you?
I was very, very unhappy. I mean, I'm still unhappy that they left. I wish they hadn't. But, we lost 50% of the team. It wasn't like a band that has 1 main songwriter or 2 main songwriters. This is a band that had 4 songwriters. So we lost half our power. But Eric and I, after much discussion, decided to carry on, and we carried on, and we had a lot of success. I mean, Things We Do for Love, the Dreadlock Holiday, that there are other tracks as well. So it was still good, but it was different. It wasn't the same, of course not.
Now, tell me the role you had with Neil Sedaka. I know you guys really helped him out a lot.
Yes, we really enjoyed working with Neil. We did 2 albums with him. Solitaire and The Trello Days Are Over. And our manager at the time had met Neil, knew that he was playing in a club in the north of England, and suggested to him that because the studio wasn't that far from where he was working, that he come over and record his next album, which was a brilliant idea. And Neil said, yeah, and I remember going over to his hotel with a tape recorder and recording the songs that he wanted to record for the album, and me taking them back to the studio, and we'd make sort of simple little charts to work with. And when Neil came in the studio, he was so well prepared. He would play piano. Me and Lol would play guitar, Kevin would play drums, and Eric would be in the studio because Eric was an engineer as well. And Neil would sing the lead vocal at the same time as putting the piano down. It's marvelous. and I think we learned a lot from working with him. Just very, he was very professional. Some of it, his professionalism rubbed off on us, I'm sure.
So I want to get to back to the solo album. Now, I heard "We're Alive." I like it. It's very upbeat. What? Tell me what that song is about, because you listen to it. I can never decipher what lyrics mean. Tell me what "We're Alive" is about.
All right. Well, the conversation, I wrote it in Nashville with two of my sort of regular co-writers there, Beth Nilsson Chapman and Gordon Kennedy. And we were talking about dancing and how, even though we're sort of musicians and we've got rhythm, it doesn't necessarily translate to your body being able to move in a nice way. So there was something of that in the air as we were writing it, and I started playing this opening chord sequence, and like with a lot of songs, Beth was very good on lyrics. So the song really is about, there's references to computers in it as well. So it's like, forget about the computers. Let's just dance and celebrate ourselves, that we're alive, And so I started off this first verse, and then it's very hard to remember exactly what happens, but people contribute things. Like I had this middle section, and Beth put these strange chords at the end of one sequence. It was so great that which changed the whole atmosphere of the song, really. Gordon came up with the middle section and other suggestions, and the song was written really quickly, which is, I think, is always a good sign. Doesn't mean it's going to be a hit, but it means something that it has a naturalness about it. And I think it's great. I'm really, really proud of it, and that's why we sort of put it out as a sort of first track from the album.
So when you wrote this album, did you write a bunch of songs and then whittle it down, or did you have your idea of, we're going to write 10 or 11 songs? Because I come from the album generation, and album's 10 or 11. I hate when I go to the gym and they have the extended version. I'm like, I don't want to hear 23 songs. I want to hear the same song I heard in 1978. I want to remember looking at the album, and they always screw that up.
And in the same order as well. The order of the songs is, people might not think about it, but the order is quite important. I mean, I try. I don't want too much up and down, and on the other hand, I don't want any sort of something on the same level. So the keys of the songs are important. Sometimes the same keys can sound really good. Sometimes it's like jarring. So there's a bit of an art in that. But what happened was, a couple of years ago, I wrote a song about the James Webb Space Telescope called Floating in Heaven. And I played the song to Andrew at my record company, and he said, you should ask Brian May to play on it, because Brian's a great guitarist, obviously, but he's also an astronomer and an astrophysicist, so it seemed to make sense to have him play on the record. Anyway, I sent it to Brian. He said, I love it. He got back in touch with me really almost immediately. Anyway, we made the record together, and I'm very proud of it, actually. And I started then I was in the mood for writing songs. So I just carried on and recorded them. I'd have a studio at home. I also worked with a guy called Graham Pleath, who has a really lovely studio, and did a lot of the recording there. And suddenly I had 3 or 4 songs. I just wanted to record them. I thought, I'm going to make, it looks like I'm heading for another album here, which was a bit unusual for me, because I'd already put one out in 2000. I think it was right when the pandemic started. The timing couldn't have been worse. But anyway, that album came out. So normally I would wait a few years too. I'm not that prolific that I would put an album out every, year or so. So it was just that I was on a roll, basically.
Do you ever think of putting a 10cc, writing an album for 10cc again, or is that in your past and now you want to concentrate on your solo work?
No, I won't do that. It's one thing to go out with a touring band, but it's another thing to put out new songs under the 10cc name. I have been asked to do it many times, but I won't do it. It doesn't feel right.
Now, do you feel over the years, has your songwriting changed at all? I mean, do you think about, do people grow as a songwriter? Do you grow and think about politics and different stuff? I mean, what's it like, the difference between you being a young writer back when you wrote Bus Stop to you writing now? Is there an evolution, or is it still the same instinct?
The instincts remain the same. The only thing I'm very conscious of are the lyrics. I mean, whereas you might write a lyric as a young man, you know, writing about going to a club and seeing a girl and whatever goes on, that seems a bit unseemly for a more mature person to be writing about. You can still write about love songs. I mean, I do, but my wife is my sort of muse, you know, and I've written songs like for her or about her as well. I've actually got one. There is a song called Ariella that was on my previous album. So, yeah, the mechanics of writing, if you can call it mechanics, or the process is the same, but the things you write about are different. So no sort of boy meets girl, unless it's a pastiche. That's the big difference. But you might talk about the environment a little bit more. You might talk about bringing peace to the world. I mean, they might sound like cliches, but they're important. So I'm not afraid of doing that.
So what can people expect on this tour? Like if I go see you at the Keswick Theater in Glenside, Pennsylvania, what am I expecting? How long of a set are you playing? Are you doing an encore? Because I heard a lot of people don't like doing encores anymore. What am I going?
Don't you want any surprises?
I'm a baby. I always look at the set list. I want to know what I'm hearing, and then I get more excited. I look for what the set list.
I'm not going to tell you, but you're going to get all the hits. That's the main thing. You're going to hear all the hits that we had. We had 11 hits in various countries. Not all of them were in America, but hopefully as 10cc fans, you will know them. And we include various album tracks that we like, that we hope you'll like. And I do include one new song, but there's a reason for it, and it's relevant. And that's what I'm going to take.
I got one last question for you, Graham. Looking back at your career, and I mean, you know, you're in the Songwriters Hall of Fame. You've had hits. You've toured the world. Looking back, what makes you proud about your career? When you look back and you go, this makes me proud. Is there something that just makes you like, oh, yeah, man?
I think I'm proud of being able to bring some pleasure into people's lives. I know what it's like when I hear a piece of music that just moves me so much, to have the ability to move people, hopefully. I mean, when someone says to me, I mean, there's a couple of songs that we do, and people come up to me afterwards and say, that was so beautiful, it made me cry. Inside, I'm going, job done. Because I want you to feel what I felt. That's it. And just, you know, when you've seen it then, you're a performer. As we were saying before, you made people laugh. You moved them. That's a wonderful thing. You took them out of whatever they were worried about, and we've all got worries and things. To take people out of their heads, if you like, legally for a while, I think it's a great gift. And something I'm proud of.
Good. I'm glad, and you should be, because you know you're going to see all these people at the concert in America bringing their kids and their grandkids who have known you, and you have that whole. I mean, it must be great for you when Guardians of the Galaxy was such a huge hit. You know, I'm Not in Love. You got a whole new generation of fans, and that must be amazing as an artist.
It is amazing, and to have, that film certainly created much more of an awareness, as you said, particularly to younger audiences.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on today, Graham. People, go go to 10cc World. That's their website, and you go to Graham's website because his album. You can find out about his new album, and if you go, you can find the song "We're Alive." People, go check him out. Graham, thank you so much for coming on. People, go listen to some 10cc. Go to my website, coopertalk.net. You can find over 1,000 episodes. Email me at coopertalk.net. Twitter, it's at coopertalk. Remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guest. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you next time.